I'm All Alone.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Krams are here. 90s week continues, and today we are talking about our favorite live albums of the decade.
In general, it gets easier to like live albums as time goes on, especially for bands that have been around, because mainly their set list can just have more options, and that's big for me, are the set lists.
This was a tough one for me. Every time we do a live albums video, it's kind of tough, and I think the 90s was even tougher than the 70s or 80s. Just I don't listen to them or care about them very much at all. So there's my five are like the five that I've ever listened to.
Well, you also have a mega awesome series of live albums called MTV Unplugged, which just awesome all the way through. Who wants to start it off?
I can. I'm kind of with Jason. I do like live stuff, but I don't listen to it that often. So the 90s were a little tough. Other than MTV Unplugged, which I think my favorite of is the Alice in Chains one. I like the Nirvana one, but I like their covers better than their originals, kind of stripped down and acoustic. Man Who Sold the World and stuff like that's great. The other stuff, Nirvana's fine. I just don't care about them that much. However, if you want to do live Nirvana, Muddy Banks of the Wishkah is far superior to MTV Unplugged. I also got, it's kind of cheating, but it came out in 97, so Zeppelin BBC, recorded in the 70s. Can't do much better than that. Also, Clapton Unplugged's kind of fun. He did Tears in Heaven, which isn't fun, but pretty good song. The Layla acoustic's pretty good. Not my favorite, but not a lot to choose from. The best live album of the 90s, probably for me, is going to be S&M by Metallica. I loved No Leaf Clover when that came out. I think the symphony and metal always works together. I like metal. I like Metallica in general. I also love symphonies and symphonic music, so natural sort of pairing right there. But other than that, I mean, there's not a lot to choose from really from the 90s, although maybe Krams is a little more in depth with it.
Not too in depth. I got a lot of obvious ones because I think the cream rises to the top. But yeah, I probably like live albums the most of the three of us. We've talked about that before. Yeah, for me, just missing the cut is Stevie Ray Vaughan live at Carnegie Hall. Doesn't sound too different than most of his live stuff, but it's just a classic. I'm going to throw in Paris by The Cure. They do a lot of deep cuts on this, which is really cool. Looking at the track list, the only hit really is Love Song, which is cool. Awesome stuff from Pornography. They lead off with The Figurehead and 100 Years. 100 Years is one of my favorite Cure songs, and it sounds so cool live with that just circular bubbly drum part just doing with the double kicks live. Is awesome. Next, I'm going to go with probably the biggest Pink Floyd has ever sounded with Pulse. Just amazing guitar work on it. This is when they had the big female background singers and 2 drum kits, and it just sounds huge, but it really works. They close with Run Like Hell. Sounds awesome. Big, 9-minute version. I also have Live on Two Legs by Pearl Jam, which I really love because it takes a lot of stuff from No Code and kind of simplifies it and makes it more accessible to a live audience. Not that I don't love the stuff on No Code, but I think the songwriting comes across a little more with just a little more straightforward approach on this album. Really cool. And then the other stuff too is great. Open with Corduroy, stuff like that. Better Man and Nothing Man, really great live versions. I will also go with A Little South of Sanity by Aerosmith. The big hits that they do on this sound great. Ragdoll, and especially Back in the Saddle, and Janie Got a Gun. Steven Tyler's got really cool interaction with the audience a little bit here and there throughout the album. And opening with Eat the Rich just sounds badass. It's cool. But my number one's got to be MTV Unplugged, Nirvana. My favorite Nirvana stuff is all on here. I think the really thin acoustic, dreary, sound of the acoustic guitar and the bass just sounds so cool on this album. Joe's right. A lot of the covers are just fantastic, especially The Man Who Sold the World. No disrespect to Bowie, but I do kind of like this version more. And it's definitive Nirvana for me, and just great, especially for those, the production on Nevermind and stuff being a little bit streamlined never bothered me, but this does kind of have a little bit more of the Nirvana like muted soul for me, and I think it's awesome. Maybe one of my probably top 5 live albums of all time. I love it.
All right. So I got one repeat on my list. I've also got Live on Two Legs by Pearl Jam. I've also got Live at the Greek, Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes. Pretty good live record, I think. It's good to hear Jimmy playing these songs again. Live at Chennai, Jeff Buckley in a really like intimate coffee shop type of setting. Really cool. Really recommend the Legacy edition, sort of expanded. He's doing all kinds of covers. He does Night Flight by Zeppelin and all kinds of other stuff. It's really cool. Different Stages by Rush, my favorite Rush live album. I got into this record when I knew sort of a few Rush albums and all the big hits, but this kind of introduced me to all the other kind of nooks and crannies of their catalog and got me interested in listening to all of it, and really was kind of what sparked them becoming my favorite band around that time. And then my number one is Across the Wire by Counting Crows. 2 discs. The first disc is the VH1 Storytellers show, which is a little more stripped back along the lines of an Unplugged show a little bit. And then the second disc is MTV Live at the 10 Spot, which is a full-on electric set, which sounds more like the studio versions, but both discs are great.
It's worth noting on Different Stages that's like the only tour they ever did 2112 in its entirety, and you can listen to it all live on that album.
Yeah, and the third disc is great too. I think it's from 77, Farewell to Kings, I think, show, and that's awesome too.
I think the only big ones that nobody mentioned were Eagles, Hell Freezes Over, which I don't think any of us really care about. And then another big one would be Neil Young with Weld. That one's well regarded. But other than that, there's just not that much to choose from in the 90s, unless you really loved MTV Unplugged series. Sparse, slim pickings.
There's some good Unpluggeds that I like also. I like the Dylan one a lot. The Neil Young one's really good. So yeah, there's a few more that I could throw in.
There's some live recordings from Woodstock 94 that really let me down, just like as a whole album. And then I think Live has an album from 94's their appearance at Woodstock, and not very good. Like, just a lot of stuff from there. I don't know what went on, but I'd never found anything really from that Woodstock that was that impressive to me. Disappointing.
There's one more I got to mention, just because, to sort of defend my 1998 pick of Dave Matthews Band. Listener Supported, which came out in 99, I think is a pretty good document of the band and how good they are instrumentally. Not my favorite thing in the world, Dave Matthews Band live. I've never been to a concert, but I think the Listener Support is probably the best one of their myriad live albums. So, if you like Dave Matthews, check that one out. I know nobody does. I think one other person in all of our comments had Dave Matthews on any year, so I'm alone. I'm all alone.
All right, so everybody get down in the comments. Let us know what your favorite live albums of the 90s are. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for lots of videos, doing at least 4 a week. Hit the like button, subscribe. Check down in the description for links to all of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we will see you in the next video.